So I think it's time we address the biggest issue that seems to be ignored in the community right now, be it because players are still learning the ropes or simply just don't see it. The problem I'm talking about is the massive balance issue that is driving builds and the meta in a way that I think is extremely unhealthy for the game. Let me explain. Now, when I talk about the balance, I'm talking about a couple of things. First off, the balance between the Descendants. The massive disparity between a Descendant like Blair and Bunny, one having almost non-existent playtime besides the die-hard fans who genuinely like him, and while I think he's a cool Descendant, his kid is absolutely atrocious. On the other end, you have characters like Bunny, who can absolutely decimate the entire screen in a couple of seconds, super mobile, and whenever you have her built properly, she can easily contend with the best of the best bossers as someone who is probably the best AoE farmer in the entire game. She costs absolutely no resource to do some of her damage by simply pressing the spacebar multiple times, and once again, as I said a second ago, if you build a proper Bunny build, she can absolutely decimate bosses higher than, I would say, at most Descendants outside of maybe 2. On the other end, there are a lot of problems with the modules. Some of them are just simply unplayable. For example, on Lepic, the regenerative braking is absolutely atrocious. Through extensive testing of this module, it has almost no value. The mana sustain is non-existent and it's way too low of a chance to even be worth it. Nerve infiltration has almost no value, seeing that there's only one regeneration based boss which you can easily sneeze on and absolutely kill, and even if there was a boss that healed, I'm pretty sure just slotting in something that dealt damage would do way better than using a transcendent mod like this. Increased efficiency is great, but for mobbing, which always brings the question why mob with Lepic when you can just do it with Bunny. Of course, he has the 7-second kill build, which we're going to talk about in a second, that probably will scale off if they do things right. We also have the grenade mod Transcendent that, while I am testing right now, I feel is going to be just not usable because most skill builds outside of Bunny and like maybe 2 other Descendants are just not viable for bossing. And of course, you have things like power unit charge that give you increased firearm attack, which is probably going to be his best build for the non-ultimate versions, which you basically use your ability and shoot your weapon. When we talk about someone like Enzo that I main, his best build is his supply firearm enhancer build, which is once again using his skill to buff your weapon, because to be quite frank, all his other drone and other abilities just don't do enough damage to justify the cost. When we talk about Descendants like Valby, another Descendant that is actually pretty decent as a caster, not the greatest, super hyper invested in order to be viable and still be way less effective than Bunny. Her current most used skill and probably most viable skill is once again supply moisture, drop down your ability and use your weapon. Glay, which is very strong in the meta right now, is basically press Q and use your weapon. Blair's actual only usable build is the backdraft. I know a lot of people like Truly Deadly Cuisine, they love to hit for 14 million damage with a super long cooldown, but I can just shoot for like 10 seconds and do the same damage. But backdraft, once again, is an ability where you just put down a skill and you shoot with your weapon. I think you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Almost every build right now, outside of maybe a handful of outliers and the overtuned Bunny, is just firearm builds. And some would argue, hey, well, this is a shooter. And while I would agree that a lot of people value shooters and weapons should be a good focus of it, what's the purpose of me having a different Descendant if we're just going to be Glay with extra steps? Which brings me to my last, while not the only problem, just one of the bigger ones, the way the content is balanced. For mobbing, for example, there's really no reason to use any other Descendant besides Bunny. Again, I know people are going to like other Descendants and like to play others, but in the grand scheme of things, there's no reason to use anyone else. And from my bossing standpoint, the only thing that really matters is loading up as much damage as possible and just shooting them. We see it a lot right now where every single boss currently available in the first Descendant, if you do a pretty low effort Lepic build, ultimate Lepic build rather, who is actually one of the easiest ultimates to farm. I think he was easier to farm than like normal Vyessa. Slot in 8 katas, which isn't even that crazy of an investment, and you can easily destroy every single boss in the game if you want to. And for some who don't want to learn mechanics, that sounds amazing, right? You don't have to try even in the slightest, you just shoot and you get it done. That gameplay style is the reason why I, a 10-year veteran of Warframe, stopped playing that game, because the game devolved into not being a game but just a punching bag simulator where I just absolutely destroyed everything in seconds. And once again, that can sound fun, but in moderation. Now, I get the feeling you guys understand what I'm trying to say when it comes to the balance of the first Descendant. It's not in a good place. Descendants are disproportionately stronger than others. A lot of Transcendent mods are just straight up not viable, and a lot of the content devalues so many other Descendants like Eugen, Kyle, Jaber, who is also still broken, I like to point out. Now the last one could be a product of content not being added yet, so that could change in the future, and that's kind of what I'm expecting. This is why I'm really strong against hyper investing into Lepic's one build. But with all that said, I do want to talk about some possible solutions that's going to make the game feel much more healthier in the long run. First things first, we need to address balance. If you are a viewer of the channel for months or years, you know one thing about me that I always talk about, whether it be in No Rest for the Wicked, Path of Exile, Diablo 4, or many other games that I've covered over the 2.5 years I've been on YouTube, is balance and nerfing. One thing I'm very strong against is nerfing content. When you nerf things, I always feel like it's always going to make the game worse. There's only very extreme situations where I feel like you should reasonably nerf content, and that is whenever something is so egregiously stronger than everything else that it would take too much to bring everything up and it'll break the game. Right now, I do believe we have that with Bunny. Bunny is egregiously stronger than almost any other Descendant in the game. From a mobbing standpoint, she is by far the best, and it's not even close. Her AoE is too high. She requires almost no resource to be able to deal damage. She simply presses the spacebar and she can absolutely kill anything. Outside of Glay, there's almost no character in the first Descendant that can require no resource to kill things. And with a proper build, she can absolutely kill some of the strongest bosses with little effort compared to other Descendants that have to put way more in. On top of that, she doesn't even require much change on her mod setup to even be able to do it. So nerfing Bunny is absolutely needed, and I'm actually genuinely surprised that they haven't. If we're being honest with ourselves, there's really no reason to play anyone but Bunny right now. On the other end, Blair needs extreme amounts of love. The AoE increase that Blair is getting is not going to solve any of his issues. While it will help, is nowhere near enough to bring him in line into playable range. A lot of Descendants need to be buffed to be actually playable. Mana needs to be changed in a way that is sustainable so that it can be used in things outside of mobbing, because once again, characters like Bunny doesn't need a lot of mana to be effective. Glay does not need mana to be effective, and that's why these two Descendants, for example, by far are some of the strongest in the game that's constantly breaking the game. Next, we need to take a hard look at all the Transcendent mods and make them usable. Next, we need to start looking at Transcendent mods and making them playable. Blair's Transcendent mod, for example, Incendiary Bomb or whatever it's called, needs to be strongly looked at. There's no logical reason why one of the worst abilities in the entire game, like the cast under his feet, requires a Transcendent mod to be able to actually use it at a distance and lose all his AoE benefits. I'd like to point out that's pretty insane that all your AoE has no value when you put that Transcendent mod on. I'm not sure if you guys actually know that. Some very simple solution: make his Q a passive range ability, let it scale with range, and even then that ability still wouldn't be usable. Change some of his cast animations and some of the damage numbers, and even more so lower some of his cooldowns. Just throwing some ideas out there that would make him maybe worth picking up and still be worse than Bunny in every way. I get they want to add Ultimate Valby and Luna, but there's still Descendants like Jaber, for example, that doesn't even work. His turrets don't even scale properly like they should be. So putting so much effort into pushing out these new Descendants, and you have some that are just straight up broken, or realistically, unless you really like them, unplayable in the current game because they're just so bad, needs to be a top priority. Finally, when it comes to the bosses, what we need to do about those is make them not just burstable. There needs to be some type of mechanic to make them actually a fight. What I'm expecting to happen on August the 1st is what's going to happen is someone's going to walk in with 4 Lepics. They're gonna just blow it up in 10 seconds. And I know some of you will say, well, that sounds pretty cool. And it does sound cool to kill the newest boss in 10 seconds. But you know what doesn't sound cool? Having no content to do because everything is so hyper devalued because of how a lot of the game is set up. My biggest fear right now for the first Descendant is it's going to die out because it's going to be too boring, because a select few Descendants with relatively low investment is going to kill every single thing in the game with almost no effort. A lot of the cool Descendants that a lot of players like are just so weak and unusable that people are going to get fed up with trying them and be forced to play characters like Bunny. And while there will be introduction of new characters, but realistically, if I'm just a normal player, I would not buy Luna, I would not buy Ultimate Valby, because my Bunny and my Glay can easily do anything they could ever do, or Lepic can do anything they could ever do, and they don't just have value outside of from a collection standpoint, I guess. Anyways guys, this is starting to become a rant, so let me know your comments down below. I read every single comment, so I would like to know your thoughts on some of the issues that I brought up in this discussion. I know for a fact, while most can argue certain things about Bunny, I know a lot of people in the community like her. There's no debating that Blair needs some love. There's no debating that the bosses need to be tuned differently, and there's definitely no debate that some of the Transcendent, or a good portion of them, are just basically unusable. Let me know your comments, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.